Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden. An ocean cruise may seem like an exotic, romantic vacation for some people, but not me. I have no interest in sailing the bounding main on a floating hotel hundreds of miles from land. And after seeing what awaits the crew of super tramps out on the ocean, there's all the more reason to stay ashore. Who are the super tramps, you may ask? They are the protagonists of Patricia Punch Barrett's latest adventure, Ventaloha, the third title in the Panterra Chronicles series. Welcome, Patricia, from Henderson, Nevada today.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for asking.
Now,
hmm
tell our viewers who these super tramps are. They are quite a collection of characters, and they are not the band who sang Take a Long Way Home or the Logical Song. Completely different. I don't know how you got that, but there you go. So who are
Well, yeah, the super tramps are sort of descendants in a circus family, and they get their name because they're aerialists. And
they?
they're also robotics champions, which is how they wound up on an expedition, an ocean-going expedition to study and map the ocean floor. Because even though they're young, they are prodigies, and they can help out for things, mechanical failures, or they're guiding a remotely operated vehicle, autonomously operated vehicle. They have wild card factors. Everybody knows it, and they're sort of computer and technical wizards as well. So it was something that they decided to do. It's kind of like an internship, and they're out there on the high seas in the depths of the ocean, and things start cascading downward. So it's an exciting adventure, and I don't want to give away too much about the plot because it's fun, and I don't
Yeah,
want
we
to
won't do that.
spoil it.
Yeah.
But they engage with some sea monsters that have come up from the depths of the ocean. And the sea monsters are kind of like the Bonnie and Clyde of the underwater world.
They
And
look,
they're
they look
just
like
out.
They look like Faye Dunaway.
No,
Warren Beatty. No.
no, but the female of the species thinks she is, and
Oh.
they have chromatophores. So if she wanted to look like Faye Dunaway, she could. So anyway, it makes for a fun adventure. They do hobble back to port in Hawaii, and there they're on the beach, kind of recovering from a very exhaustive mission. And so they decide to go deep sea diving off the coast of Maui. And again, an invisible force, which really does happen in real life. Sometimes there are powerful forces that grab ships and they go aground, and there's no explanation. So anyway, they're out there exploring the methane seeps off the coast of Hawaii, and they encounter another problem. And well, turns out the sea monsters are at it again. They had hot wired a trawler, and they're in cahoots with some pirates. And the sea monsters are in it for the mayhem and the fun. And yet they are intelligent beings. A lot of ocean creatures are. And they've kind of intuited and figured out what the pirates are up to. And they have this epiphany, and they kind of, their characters change, and they become formidable adversaries of the pirates. And this is where it really gets fun. So, the goal of the pirates is to manipulate and enlist the aid of the sea monsters so that they can create biohybrid robotic sea monsters. And that's so that Captain Razorlash can control and rule the oceanic world.
Great name.
And what's interesting and ironic here is that I had written the story, and I guess I did come across something about bionic jellyfish. But I got involved with this a little bit more after the story was written. And it turns out that researchers at Caltech have actually created biohybrid bionic jellyfish
Oh.
to study the depths of the ocean because any of these expedition ships, it costs about $50,000 a day to operate one. And uh, the researchers and scientists at the institutes, educational institutes and research institutes, many of them are doing this, but they're outfitting jellyfish with these caps, these electronic hats, if you will, and sending them into the depths of the ocean to record the temperature, the salinity, the oxygen levels, and everything. And they're doing this so that they can have this information to understand the impact of the oceans on climate change, and conversely, the impact of climate change on the oceans. And of course, jellyfish don't have brains, and all they really have is the ability to swim, eat, sting, and breed, you know. So there's no harm to the jellyfish. And they go maybe 3,000 feet down and do the work that would be done by a submersible.
Mhm.
So they're doing this, and it just struck me as ironic that I have these biohybrid engineered sea monsters in my story when real life or art is imitating real life, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, the researchers and scientists are doing it for very pure reasons, you know, to better understand the oceans and climate change and the effect the oceans have on climate change on land. But anyway, it's a fun adventure. Of course, it's science fiction, but it was interesting to me. Oh my, if somebody evil had a sinister lab operation going on, I mean, well, let's hope not. So
Well, we can hope not. Now,
yeah.
you call it science fiction, but really there is something based on truth here. Early on in Ventaloha, you have the super tramps exploring the ocean floor with remote cameras, very much as scientists do in real life. In fact,
Mhm,
what I think is fascinating is that you've added links throughout the book to
mhm.
underwater exploration videos that are
Yes.
absolutely amazing.
Have you seen some of them on
Yes.
YouTube?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went ahead and clicked after I was reading your the first part of your book. I clicked on some of those, and they are just incredible. And you hear the scientists and their reactions to them and stuff like that. That was a great idea to do that.
Thank you.
Why did you include that? That's
Well,
brilliant.
you know, I thank you very much. In fact, in following on what you just said, there was one sequence of dialogue that I virtually lifted from a Nautilus expedition, and the scientists really do have fun with it. They name the
Yeah.
whales and everything, and they comment about the snot on the ocean floor from the
Mhm.
whales, and their scientists are a lot of fun. So anyway, I do get news feed in the morning. I get it from Nice News or Nautilus. I do subscribe to that. And they, every once in a while, they have a story that I'm intrigued with. And I go to YouTube and I watch these documentaries that they refer to or allude to. And I just have become really interested in what's going on in the ocean.
Yeah, in a way, it's not just an adventure story, but it's sort of an educational story too. I mean, people can look at that and then they can click on those links and see what actual scientists are
Oh
doing.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you can see those chimneys and vents.
yeah.
This idea of Ventaloha, which is a fictional city, it's all tricked out like Versailles, but of course it's fiction and it makes for good fiction. But in point of fact, they do have vent cities where these spires rise up because of the belching of minerals and gases from the mantle of the earth.
Mhm.
And I think we chatted about this before, that there are chemosynthetic microbes, not photosynthetic, because there's no light down there. But
Right.
they love the nutrients. Well, to them, it's nutrients, sulfur and methane and
Yummy.
all of this. So they digest that, and it becomes living microbial carpets.
Hmm.
I had no idea. And so this then became part of the story as well. But there was one expedition. This was by Nautilus, I think, and they were headed toward uh, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, where there's a lot of methane seeps and hydrothermal vents, but they're hard to find.
Mhm.
And because only about 5% of the ocean has been mapped or explored, you know. So they were excited about going to these hydrothermal vents. Their sensors and everything kind of indicated this might be a good place to look. And simultaneously, this huge piece of ice down in Antarctica calved off of the ice pack. So they got permission to shift directions and go there.
Hmm.
And what they discovered was another ecosystem under
No
the ice
kidding.
pack. Yeah. And in that voyage alone, I think I recall they discovered about 60 new species that had never been seen before.
Wow.
And caverns and waterways, I mean, there's an enormous amount of scientific data that hasn't been tapped into.
Right.
So, one of the reviewers on Amazon said that he really enjoyed the adventure, but he went away thinking differently about the oceans. And
Right.
to me, that was just like the ultimate compliment,
Yeah.
that if it causes anybody to think differently about the oceans or to go to YouTube
Mhm.
and see some of this stuff, it's
Yeah.
magnificent and fascinating. So I really appreciate that you've done that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, yeah, it's fascinating. And I am under the impression that the super tramps are fairly young folks.
Oh
Who's
yeah.
the audience for your book? Are they young? Is it young adult readers? Is it
Well,
anybody can read it, obviously, but
yeah.
is it
Um, yeah, it's kind of oriented towards young adults, but they're very sophisticated young adults. So
obviously?
really, and at the same time, I have a lady friend whose son, 9 years old, read the first book, loved it, and he was 9 years old.
No, no
So
kidding.
he was advanced for his age, but kids that are readers, kids that are interested in science, they can read it. It's not highly technical because I mean, I never studied marine biology or science. Yes, everybody has to take that. But it's just been kind of like something that I've always been interested in. And most people think it's of interest, but I would love it if people found it both interesting and informative, and maybe did a little research on their own,
Yeah.
and certainly became concerned with what's going on in the oceans, because a lot of countries are lined up to mine the ocean floor. Well, why would you go and tear up the ocean floor? Well, they want these nodules that tend to show up near a vent field that have been belched up from the mantle of the earth, and they contain things like cobalt and well, the rare earth minerals. There's 17 of them. I can't pronounce any of them, but anyway, they're very valuable because they're important in electronics and chip manufacturing, especially for the new age of computers, quantum computers, semiconductors need these things. So it may or may not be profitable, because if you have to go to the depths of the ocean floor to pick these things up, and you're held by cables and stuff, you can ruin a lot of equipment before you actually get a cash of valuable minerals.
Yeah.
So, but that's the big incentive, the big motivation is to mine the ocean floor for these rare earth minerals. But in the process, there may be some destruction and desecration of very fragile ecosystems. And, ordinarily people think, well, that's interesting, but the whole food web is contingent upon these chemosynthetic microbes down there doing their thing with the smoke coming up, and they have these blind vent shrimp, and they dart in and out of these smoker vents to get their food. And they don't care. They some of them get incinerated, but they love what the earth is giving on the ocean floor. And then of course the vent shrimp get eaten by the tube worms. That might not be correct, but they get eaten by uh,
Who's going to
creatures.
know?
Who's going to know, right? They get eaten by creatures that are higher up in the food web. But eventually, then between that and the chemistry of the ocean changing because of all of the carbon dioxide that's being dumped into the ocean, it changes the chemistry of the ocean and the migration patterns. And so scientists, they're trying. There's been enormous budget cuts. And so the federal funding has dried up. Some of them are persevering and doing this on their own. But the information is vital in understanding the impact of digging up the ocean floor and the impact of the oceans on climate change on land. And again, conversely, the effect of, the climate change in the ocean.
Now, this is the third in your series. I assume a fourth
Yes.
is coming up. Do they have to have read one and two before they read three, or can it stand on its own?
It can pretty much stand on its own. If they want
Yeah.
more information about who the super tramps are, they should probably go back to book one and read that. And the second one, probably not so much. They're going to get a lot of information about the background of the super tramps in book two.
Okay.
And I'm working on a fourth book, and this has more to do with the quantum world and not heavy duty science. I'm certainly no physicist,
Yeah.
but I have some fun with quantum fields and a new character that I'm introducing.
As an encouragement to other writers out there, I've got to tell them that you didn't start writing this stuff till after you retired.
Yes, that's
So
true.
it's never too late to
It's
start putting things down.
there you go.
There it is, Ventaloha. Okay, well, with that, we say aloha to Patricia. And thanks so much for joining us today. The book, again, is Ventaloha, as you see there, the third in the Panterra Chronicles series, and it's available on Amazon and elsewhere, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Paul
You
Ryan.
bet.
Right.
It is my pleasure, Patricia. Good seeing you again, as always. And thank you, folks, for spending a few minutes with us on the Global Book Network. I'm Paul Ryden. We'll see you next time.